no, we're not doing that this time. We're jumping right into this one. And as you can see by the fact that I'm not wearing my normal suit and am instead wearing my priest outfit, I felt the need to take this one rather seriously because the person I'm going to talk about has done absolutely abhorrent crime. Not just against VTubing, but in the eyes of the law. And yes, I did inform the authorities before going ahead with this. See, the thing is, I've realized that a decent amount of my videos in the future will require me to bring up the subject of this video. So I have two choices. I can either say, I'll talk about her in the future until I actually release a video whenever I bring her up, or I can release a video now and then just say, go watch the video I made about her for more info. I have opted to do the latter, as you can probably tell from the title of this video, because I'm finally giving the snow leopard lewd tuber CelestialVT, also known as Celeste and Uriella Berry, a full video. This one was kind of inevitable. From the second I started making a video on Celeste's friend Akuma Miko, who, if you're not familiar with her, is guilty of, among other things, doxing, slander, and helping her boyfriend cover up the fact that he sexually assaulted his ex, who is a trans man, among other things. If you want more info on that, go watch the video that kickstarted my coverage of VTuber misdeeds. It would be inevitable that I would tackle Celeste, because this is the motherlode of VTuber drama, at least among indies, that is. Short of doing stuff that has caused physical pain to people, odds are that if you could think of something a VTuber has done that got them in hot water, Celeste has done something similar, if not worse. I could not reach out to Celeste, mainly because she has seemingly vanished off the internet. Her Twitter was deleted, her Twitch has been closed, or rather her Twitch account, since she has two identities, and I couldn't find any other socials of hers. So you might wonder, why am I making this video? Well, a few reasons. First of all, I suspect that she might try and return one day, so I want to get this out there in order to stop that from happening. In other words, I'm salting the earth. Second, she has done a lot of harmful actions to other people through a variety of ways, so I want to give justice to those people, and also clear some names while I'm at it. Third, and as I had previously mentioned, Celeste will pop up in future videos of mine, so I want to have something people can refer back to. There's also the fact that the Blacklist has been warned about her, yet they haven't put her on there. In fact, I have reason to believe that there are 3 entries that she had a hand in putting on the Blacklist. There is one other person who is wrongfully on there, but as far as I know, she had no connections to that person, and I'll get to him in a future video. Now, I would like to note that a large amount of the stuff I'm using comes from this one Google Doc, but I did find a few other things that I'll be bringing up. Also, there's a few things that she's involved with that I can't comment on right now, because they involve a whole set of allegations that she either made or helped spread against other people, and I'd rather not tackle that subject right now, but I will get to it in a future video, so just be patient, and all I'll say for now is that a miscarriage of justice occurred. But before we get any further, I feel that I should put a content warning here. Warning, the following video contains discussion of pedophilia, CSAM, and false grooming allegations. Viewer discretion is advised. And as usual, don't harass anyone I bring up in this video, although I don't really know how you could harass Celeste anyway, since, as I mentioned, I haven't found any socials belonging to her. Now, a good amount of this video will be me reading from a document that was published, although I will be including other sources. So let's get started and look at how she has lied about her age. This one might seem odd to begin with, but it's more of setup for stuff I'll be bringing up later. And well, by the time this segment is done, you will probably have guessed the problems that this causes as soon as I present this evidence, especially given some of the content she made, but I'll get to that part later. Celeste publicly claimed she was born on July 5th, 2003. Now, the day and month is something that, from what I can tell, is correct. However, the same can't be said for the year she was born in. She was actually born on July 5th, 2004. This was something people know about thanks to a 12th grade pre-registration form that Celeste posted herself. Additionally, Celeste would use a fake ID to get into Discord servers that require age verification. This info comes from Shu Ivy, this is her personal account, Ora Sumeragi, who used to be friends with Celeste. I met her while I was looking into Akuma Miko. In case you're curious who Devin and Ramati are, they are friends of Celeste. Here's a closer photo of the ID so you can see what it looks like. Before you ask, Celeste has posted selfies of herself online, so showing photos of her face is not doxing. I know this is a fake ID for a few reasons, and let's go over them now. First, let's compare it to an actual driver's license from the state of Tennessee, or rather, an example one that the state provides, so this isn't doxing someone. You might notice that the regular one doesn't have a heart next to it. That's because that indicates the holder is an organ donor. However, there are 3 problems with this. First of all, the color is wrong. It should be solid red instead of the yellow. As far as I can tell, the mixed color heart has no meaning, and it does not appear to just be light shining in the photo. Second, as I stated earlier, the birth date is wrong. Celeste was actually born on July 5th, 2004, not July 5th, 2003. So the under 21 until date should say under 21 until July 5th, 2025, not July 5th, 2024. Third, according to some testimony from people who knew her IRL, namely Shu Ivy and an ex of Celeste named It's Neo, Celeste's family was very religious and controlling, meaning that they wouldn't allow her to register as an organ donor. Also, she took a ton of prescriptions. While I don't know which ones to be specific, certain prescriptions can impact eligibility for status as an organ donor. I highly doubt that she only had this ID to buy cigarettes underage. And before anyone says anything, I am aware of the allegations that have been made against It's Neo. I am going to look into those in a future video, so keep any comments on the stuff he was accused of to yourself for now. I do have words regarding the main person spreading those allegations, however. Although for reasons you'll see in this video, they should be treated with a ton of skepticism. Now, it would be one thing if she was, just buying cigarettes using that fake ID, which I can't prove since I don't know her IRL. And even if I did, I would have no way of proving that. But that's not what was happening. And this does go in the direction where you might be fearing it goes. I'll get to it later. But for now, let's take a look at the fact that she traces her art, shall we? Celeste was an artist who took commissions. However, here's the thing. She has been caught tracing art. I was going to show a thread that listed a few examples of her tracing, but unfortunately for me, the account in question was suspended. However, the document on CelestialVT once again provides evidence. Before I show the evidence, let's go over the differences between tracing and referencing art to preempt anyone who might try and defend her in the comments. As you can see with this image, tracing is when you just lower the opacity of someone's art and trace over it, even if you add things to it. And it also makes this rule that Celeste added to her Discord extremely ironic. Now that we've established what tracing is, in case you somehow didn't know what it was, here are some videos that show examples of Celeste tracing. There were some other examples in the aforementioned Twitter thread, but unfortunately I couldn't find any archives of the thread. It would be one thing if she was just tracing for fun and wasn't actually accepting commissions, but that isn't what was happening here. Now, a while back, I spoke to a VGen artist named Liliana Nevermore, and she did answer some questions of mine related to artist portfolios. The most prominent one being what would happen if someone on VGen had been caught tracing. The answer was kind of predictable, namely they would get kicked off the platform. Well, as it turns out, Celeste was attempting to become a VGen artist. Fortunately, Celeste never became one. Now, her account is not active, but I would suggest that if any staffers at VGen see this, they terminate her account or at the very least flag it so she can never become a VGen artist. But credit isn't the only thing Celeste has stolen. She's also stolen money from her fans.
I am starting to enjoy this.
This one actually kind of confuses me for reasons I'll explain. See, back in 2023, Celeste claimed that her family was abusive and started a big fundraiser to find a new place. Now, that in and of itself is something I actually would not have a problem with if she was telling the truth. Medical bills and emergency moves are something that I do believe you should be able to ask for help with. However, there's a few reasons to be skeptical of those claims. For one thing, she didn't show any evidence of the abuse, despite claiming her mother was physically abusive, meaning that all she'd have to do is show some photos of the bruises she'd gotten. Funnily enough, the fact that she didn't file a police report also proves that she was a minor at the time. But that alone wouldn't be enough for me to call her a scammer. No, I'm calling her a scammer because of two instances of funds being used for different purposes. The first was a tweet showing off some designer shoes that she had purchased from a brand called Clove. These retail for around $160 a pair. And mind you, these were posted after she had made her post showing how much she'd gotten in donations. So it's not like this was just a unfortunate coincidence. Now, I've never really gotten the appeal of expensive shoes that you wear every day, unless you work at a job that requires you to dress fancy. However, Celeste was working as a nurse, which is not a job that requires like a particularly fancy wardrobe, and I don't think most people think of that job when they think of jobs that require fancy clothes. Another purchase that came to mind was some art, specifically an art commission of this animated slime. I was actually able to find the original post, and it turns out that it was posted over a month after the fundraiser. So that's at least 2 instances of her misusing donations and about $2,000 unaccounted for. As far as I know, she never made a follow-up post about her new place. Now, the reason this confuses me is that she had a throne wish list. Why not just put those on said wish list? Shoes in an art commission are not particularly unusual items to put on a throne wish list, especially since I've seen people put stuff like actual guns on there, like this example with the Red Bull gremlin Punkalope.
Wait, what? For your world domination plans, the Barrett M82 recoil-operated semi-automatic semi-material rifle. Chambered in 50... What? Running out of... What the fuck is this? Is this an actual gun? Is this an actual gun? This is on gun... This is an actual gun. What the fuck? Chat, I do not need a gun. Airsoft guns are funny, but I don't need an actual gun, I promise you.
Unironically, it actually would have been a lot more straightforward if she'd been using the money to buy drugs, since I highly doubt you'd be able to put something like cocaine on a Throne wish list. And no, I'm not making a Throne account just to test that out. Now, before I get to the most damning stuff Celeste has done, let's first clear someone else's name and debunk some false allegations that Celeste made, as well as calling out someone else who joined Celeste in falsely accusing someone else. Celeste once posted a document accusing the VTuber Riddle64, who has since graduated and rebranded under a different name, of a bunch of stuff. I actually couldn't find the document in question until I tried a rather unconventional method, namely copying the URL from someone who covered it on a live stream. I'll get to who covered it in a second because they have a lot of explaining to do. Among the things that Celeste accused Riddle of are grooming, pedophilia, and abuse. I'm not going to link the document since, as the document on CelestialVT states, and you might have figured this out from the title of this segment, these are objectively false accusations. The document Celeste put out also doesn't contain any screenshots showing evidence, so it's basically a case of, my source is that I made it the fuck up. So, Let's go over all the proof that the document on CelestialVT has that proves that Celeste slandered Riedel. First of all, Celeste accuses Riedel of grooming her. However, their first messages were in November, and Riedel only really used channels for self-promo and showing off art she received. Additionally, even when Riedel was inactive in the server, Celeste was really into Riedel, referring to herself as Riedel's bitch, as you can see in this screenshot here. And lastly, just for good measure, here are the logs of people joining the server. While the usernames of Riedel's accounts are deleted, you can tell from the Me6 bot image that these were both Riedel's accounts. So that does prove that she did in fact leave the server at one point. Additionally, Riedel put out a document debunking the allegations that Celeste made, which I will link in the description. She also shows proof that Celeste was groomed by a different VTuber named ThunderRaven, who was actually very publicly horny on main with Celeste, as I'm showing right now. I'm just gonna let these play on screen for a few seconds. Now, you might find this a bit contradictory, considering that, as I stated earlier, Celeste was publicly lying about her age. Well, the thing is, while she was claiming to be older than she was, publicly she was still claiming to be a minor at the time, except she was claiming to be 17 instead of 16. I know this because of replies to posts by a now ex-friend of ThunderRaven's, Phoenix. You might remember him from the Fongo Boys controversy, that had him say, "You're too young for me." And a little over a week later, she posted a photo of a birthday cake with the caption, "9 more days." Oh, and before ThunderRaven, his partner Misadir, or any of his friends or fans attempt to claim that she wasn't a minor under a certain state's laws, Celeste lives in Tennessee. And this isn't doxing because Celeste herself made this information public. And the age of consent in Tennessee is 18. So ThunderRaven, you're a pedophile. Now, I cannot link you to the exact tweets that Celeste made since her account was deleted. I also can't link you to the Kage tweets since he pretty much nuked all his social media, aside from his Twitch after the whole double love fiasco. But the replies by Phoenix and ThunderRaven are still up there if you want to check them out yourself. For what it's worth, I did actually talk to Phoenix, and he didn't really seem to know what I was talking about in relation to ThunderRaven. I'm not comfortable labeling Phoenix as an accomplice who helped ThunderRaven cover up his actions based on what I have found, but I do think that Phoenix does need to explain if he knew about this and also denounce ThunderRaven. And if he did know about it, well, I'm just gonna let you guys decide what he should do about that. I'd also like to note that ThunderRaven also made false allegations against Riedel, namely coercing him into a sexual situation with her. However, considering what I've shown so far, I think the far more likely scenario is that ThunderRaven realized that he fucked up and there was no way he could defend himself. So rather than do the one thing he should have done, namely own up to what he did, graduate, and never return, Raven followed in Celeste's footsteps and made up some false allegations against Riedel, ignoring the fact that, you know, this does not change anything he has done. And before he tries and just rehashes the same DMs as a way to debunk my claim, here are some of the DMs between Riedel and ThunderRaven that he didn't show. That doesn't look like coercion to me. If ThunderRaven wants to prove me wrong, all he has to do is show the entire contents of his DMs with Riedel. If he does that, and it turns out that Riedel was lying to me, I did speak with her, I will actually graduate and never return to VTubing. I am that confident that he is lying. But I am gonna take a wild guess and say he won't do that on the grounds that he would incriminate himself if he did so. Oh, and before Raven, his partner Misadir, or any of his fans try to leave a comment defending him, don't. Here's what someone by the name of Kylo, I hope I pronounced that correctly, on Twitter, who has dealt with pedophiles as a result of his career in law enforcement, said about people claiming they didn't know the age of the person they were talking to if it turned out that said person was underage. I've arrested a pedo before. They use the same defenses. The second you find out their age, you dip. Don't stay. Do not victim blame. You were the older person in this situation. The responsibility to end things was on you and you didn't. This is no one's fault but your own. Well, this was about a completely different situation. Long story short, an e-girl named Zoopduke, who was outed as being a pedophile, attempted to rebrand as a VTuber. If you want more info on that, I'll link a Google Doc that goes over all the stuff she did. I do feel that aside from, well, the stuff that's situational to its fleas, that was Zoopduke's attempt to rebrand, this line easily applies to ThunderRaven as well for reasons I'll get to in a second. Kylo also has a thread on problematic streamers and VTubers that, much like with the VT Blacklist Twitter account, is one I fully endorse. Anyways, as it just so happens, Thunder Raven's antics got the attention of the VT Awareness Twitter account, who put up a thread on him. He DM'd them and sent them his DMs with Celeste. At first, they believed him and took down the thread they had put up on him. But after thinking it over, and after someone else pointed this out, they realized something. In the DMs he sent them to try and prove his innocence, he never cuts ties with Celeste. Or in other words, he didn't dip. Quite frankly, I'm actually surprised that Raven didn't get called out by any drama VTubers based on the evidence that was shown. Although, considering that I've heard his partner Misadira has helped him cover up his misdeeds, perhaps that's the reason why.
So, post-editing Andreas here. While I was doing one last viewing of my video, I found myself wondering why Thunder Raven was so sexual in his public replies to Celeste, one of which I'm showing right now, and as you can see from the date, it was made after the last DM he showed on the VT Awareness account. Yet in the DMs he had on Discord with her, he was interacting completely different with her. Celeste never tells him that she found his replies to her on Twitter uncomfortable. I also couldn't help but wonder why Thunder Raven only showed half of the last image as opposed to just scrolling all the way down. Well, I asked some people I've been speaking to while making this video, and I think I have an idea as to why this is the case. See, according to the more Celeste talks about someone or stuff that said person is involved in, the more she is into said person, as you can see with this image involving Thunder Raven's TikTok content being posted by Celeste. There might have been more instances in Celeste's Discord, but the people who made the doc didn't capture any of them. However, I bring this up because, well, as it just so happens, Celeste had a Snapchat where she would do sexual stuff, which would actually be more in line with the replies that Thunder Raven was making on her post. Now, while I do know that Celeste has a Snapchat account, which I just showed, I don't know for sure if Thunder Raven has a Snapchat account. However, given that this is the only explanation I can think of as to why there is such a discrepancy between the post Raven made publicly in Celeste's replies and the Discord DMs Raven showed the VT Awareness account, and also the fact that, as I showed earlier with Riedel, Thunder Raven is more than happy to omit parts of DMs that make him look bad, I wouldn't be surprised if Raven does have a Snapchat account. So, with that addition made, back to the video.
Now, as I mentioned, this did get covered by someone, and they do have somewhat of an audience. However, who covered it was particularly odd considering what they normally cover. Before I tell you who, I want you to guess who covered it. I'll give you a few seconds. I'm willing to bet most of you thought of a drama VTuber like Ilara, Solving the Mad Squirrel, or Static Tokyo. False Eyes D wouldn't cover this since Riedel was an indie and a rather small VTuber, whereas False tends to cover stuff with either corporate VTubers or big indies. I'm not saying that as an insult. Quite frankly, there's nothing wrong with that, and if anything, this actually makes this video somewhat easier so I don't have to worry about any of his fans thinking that I'm trying to pick a fight with him. In general, the VTuber drama community as a whole didn't touch this story as far as I can tell, and considering that it's built entirely on lies, they made the right call, but I'm willing to bet that one name that didn't pop into your head was Chris the Narc.
So this is a situation involving a VTuber. I know little about the VTuber community, but this one I found kind of interesting because apparently there's been like multiple different instances of VTuber bullshit happening, right? Like really, like I've been seeing a lot of it. It's kind of like psycho, and there's been a lot of it. I'm pretty sure somebody I know actually also sent me some other stuff. Let me see here. I'm just opening this real quick. I don't know if I can open those accounts. I feel like they're not safe for work. Anyways, there's a VTuber known as Celeste, Akaima, and VTuber Blacklist.
I only found out about this because when I was looking into the stuff involving Draco's star scale from like a month or two ago, while browsing that server while Hellcast confronted Draco, I saw this message from Cloy, one of Akuma Miko's orbiters and a friend of Celeste. If I hadn't, I wouldn't have known about this. And Cloy and some of Akuma and Celeste's other friends were in the chat of Chris's stream, as you can see here. The fact that Chris covered this struck me as rather odd. The only other times I've seen him cover VTubers is if he's talking about Nux Taku or Rev Says Desu. Now, Nux has associated with a decent number of non-VTubers, most notably Mutahar of Some Ordinary Gamers. And as for Rev, well, Rev doesn't actually associate with most VTubers aside from his wife. And he has made content that made him a target outside of the VTuber sphere at times. So I would say that those two aren't out of the ordinary for Chris. I could maybe see Chris deciding that any VTubers who are Nux Taku orbiters, and there are a few, might be fair game, but Riedel and Nux have never interacted with one another. But other than stuff involving those two, the accusations against Riedel were the only VTuber drama I've seen Chris cover. But here's the funny thing. I can think of at least 10 bigger VTuber dramas that, as far as I can tell, Chris didn't even acknowledge, which I'll list right now. Yaki Risu, a female VTuber who was insanely abusive and manipulative to someone who was living with her by the name of Ultima. Torakaru, who committed sexual assault against a VTuber he met on a trip, and when that came out, a ton of other stuff about him was revealed. Gunpai, who promoted an insane level of parasociality while secretly having a boyfriend, with her drama starting all over a plush. Bunny Gift, who harassed and slandered people and did a bunch of other stuff, and is still around. Needy VT, who scalped models and sold them at a significant profit without sharing any of the profit with the original artist. Marina, who, while she has been accused of other stuff, in this one particular instance decided to use a nude model on Twitch due to either not understanding the site's change in policy that has since been reverted, or maliciously deciding to ruin it for everyone else, depending on your point of view. Fillion, who, among other things, attempted to use a design she did not own to make merch. Dovalove and Kage, who were part of a chat that doxed the VTuber's son Kenji, all because Dove was bitter at Kenji. And the termination of Selen Tatsuki, which for a lot of people was the straw that broke the camel's back regarding Niji Sanji. Hell, Turkey Tom, who I would say is in the same corner of the commentary sphere on YouTube as Chris, made a video going over how WestJet and Asmongold completely botched covering Fruit's response to the allegations made against her. And that didn't even get an acknowledgement from Chris to my knowledge. And mind you, that was actually more up Chris's alley than any of the previous dramas I named, since Tom was calling out Asmongold and WestJet. WestJet also got called out by Lyrics, yet I didn't see Chris make a video covering that. What the hell, Chris? So this obviously raises the question, what made Celeste's accusations against Riedel64 so important for Chris to cover? It's not like Riedel was the only VTuber accused of grooming before then, and hell, she wasn't even that big in terms of audience. All the examples I listed off involved significantly larger VTubers, and it's not like she was an orbiter of Rev or Nux. Well, I did some digging, and Chris has some explaining to do. See, let's go back to Celeste. Celeste is friends with Ollie Rain, who is a doxer and is very slanderous. He's also a very overzealous person when it comes to hunting zoophiles and pedophiles. In fact, I'd argue that he's a case of he who fights monsters. He's doxed people and chose to go after minors who were into this stuff that he's so overzealous about going after, like in this example, where he goes after a minor who's into zoophilia. And before anyone takes me out of context, for the record, zoophilia is against the law as it should be, but Ollie should have just left that minor alone. And he also slanders other people. Not gonna present any evidence here for this particular claim, since I'm gonna get into that in a future video. Now, Ollie does not have any direct connections to Chris the Narc. The two have never spoken to my knowledge, but he does happen to have connections to someone by the name of Angry Slug, who, well, has posted and done some very concerning stuff. What do I mean? Well, Slug posted doxbin links that supposedly contained links to CP videos, and he is on the record as having watched the videos he linked, and he basically justified his actions by saying, quote, "Pedos will find CP anyways." Hey Slug, you do know that possession and distribution of this sort of thing is a crime regardless of what your intent was, right? And before you ask, no, I did not watch the video to confirm that for the reason why I'm not making the same mistakes that Slug made. I don't have the links, and even if I did, I'd rather not watch them in case they are in fact CSAM. Also, even if I did have the links and I could confirm that they weren't CSAM, why the hell would I link that stuff on YouTube? Since, you know, I don't think YouTube would appreciate it if I linked to stuff on that particular website. So, how does Chris the Narc relate to this, you might be asking? Well, I found this tweet from the commentary channel Peepaw Riveter, which showed that Chris the Narc had Angry Slug going against the tipster. And before anyone leaves any jokes about tipster in the comments, he doesn't have any other connection to this story, so your jokes would be wasted, so don't bother. Although Tipster does have a better track record than Chris the Narc when it comes to covering serious VTuber allegations. Riveter also called out Slug for basically using a CP honeypot trap. The posts in question were deleted and Riveter didn't save screenshots, unfortunately, so I can't see what Slug said in any of their back and forths, unfortunately. Now, for what it's worth, publicly, Chris has disavowed Angry Slug, but I can't think of any other way that Chris could have found out about this story.
Somebody I know actually also sent me some other stuff.
And let me address something that I know some of Chris the Narc's fans are inevitably going to say. I'm not pulling an In Praise of Shadows on him. In fact, up until I found out that he'd covered this, I actually considered myself a fan of his. Although, considering I did find out he covered this, I'm starting to reconsider that. For one thing, I'm not calling on him to be deplatformed, as I have no reason to believe he was acting maliciously. There's no way in hell he's secretly waiting for Celeste to return to Twitch so he can sub to her channel. Second, and unlike In Praise of Shadows, I did actually try and reach out to him. Not only did I tag him on Twitter, but I also asked Adentum, who I've spoken to before, most notably in regards to advice on my Ethan Ralph video, and the aforementioned Riveter, who has spoken to Chris in DMs and used to associate with the same sphere of the community that Chris was a part of, to reach out to Chris. I would have been more than happy to resolve this privately if he'd actually responded. If he does see this, all I ask is this. Do a stream where you either cover the stuff in the document or react to this video if you would prefer that, regardless of which, upload it as a stream highlight, apologize to Riedel for publicly helping Celeste ruin her life, and cut out the segment of your stream. I'll even help you by giving the timestamps right now. And just add a note to the description saying you didn't know that the allegations that Celeste made against Riedel64 were false. If Chris does see this, I also think I have the right to ask to speak with you in DM, since I have some questions for you related to this that need to be answered. And before any of his fans say that I should have super chatted him or bought a blue checkmark on Twitter to DM him, I shouldn't have to pay money just so he can fix his own fuck-ups, so shut up. In fact, I'm inclined to say that Celeste really wanted to be Riedel for some odd reason, since not only did she constantly try to steal any men that Riedel was dating or was in love with, she also claimed to be Puerto Rican, which Riedel is, despite both parents of hers being white, all photos of her showing her as incredibly white, and she never provided any proof that she was adopted. But also, and this is probably the most enraging thing, Celeste stole Riedel's miscarriage and used it as a story of her own to win sympathy. Don't take my word for it, take the word of Celeste X, it's Neo. Okay, so here's my statement regarding the whole miscarriage between me and Celeste. On January 20th, 2023, that was the time I spent the night at her dorm because it was going to be the only time I'll be able to see her for a long time. Thankfully, it's never. You can already imagine what went down between me and Celeste. Anyways, fast forward to February 6th, she told me that she went to the doctor's office for a pregnancy test. Then after her appointment, that's when she said that she wasn't pregnant. It didn't occur to me to ask for pictures of the results, but that was what I was told by Celeste herself before the confrontation with Hellcast. Then, post-confrontation, that was when she allegedly had her miscarriage, which she refused to go see a doctor, what she said under her testimony, and from what I can assume, I doubt that she had said miscarriage since she told me that she was not pregnant, and I'm sure she never showed Hellcast any proof of her actually being pregnant or having a miscarriage, and only went by her words as, quote, proof like they always do. And just for good measure, here's testimony from another ex of Celeste talking about how Celeste told him that she had a miscarriage. In fact, Celeste was so determined to make life hell for Riedel that she was willing to work with an ex of Riedel's named Demon Lord Lucian, or as he goes by now, Hikano Neat, to get Riedel's docs. If that name sounds familiar, you may remember him from my first video at the start of the year, and the follow-up I did at the start of April. But if you need a refresher or you didn't watch that video, he's a slanderer and a groomer who is committing revenge porn against Riedel. I learned that Lucian worked with Celeste thanks to Lucian's current partner, Bunny, who I tricked into admitting this. That alone would have made me decide to look into Celeste if I hadn't already decided to give Celeste an expanded video. If you want to hear the confession that Lucian made, or about the other stuff Lucian did, go watch my videos on him. I also have reason to believe that Celeste was actually keeping Lucian off the blacklist. I say this because, well, I found this comment by Traumati, one of Celeste's friends, responding to Selkie, one of Lucian's victims. Or rather, I guess I should say that Traumati is a partner in crime of Celeste. I say this because Traumati was a member of Hellcast and worked alongside Celeste in Hellcast. In fact, I have reason to believe that their relationship was more than just friends, although I'm gonna have to wait until I revisit the first case where Celeste's involvement compromised things before I elaborate on that. So just be patient. I would also say that this alone should be enough to call for Riedel64's entry to be taken off the blacklist because, well, long story short, Celeste is friends with both Akuba Miko and Cloy, the latter of whom happens to be part of the VTuber Blacklist Discord server. I did reach out to the Blacklist on both their Twitter account and a Discord account belonging to them, and they didn't get back to me. If you want proof of this, where I go further into detail as to why I believe the Blacklist is compromised, I linked a document containing an explanation in the description. Although, considering this comment I found when I looked through the Blacklist account for any mentions of Celeste, I don't think I need to explain why I doubt they would have been honest with me. Now, knowingly falsely accusing someone alone would be more than enough for me to make a video calling someone out. Or, seeing as how she's left VTubing and there's nothing to suggest she'll come back, make a video to salt the earth and ensure that she never comes back. But as you can see from how much is left of this video, we're not done yet, and the worst is yet to come. Let's start to talk about the stuff that made me feel obligated to put a content warning at the start of this video.
Don't fuck with me, boy.
Now we get to the really serious stuff and the part where I start to ask why Celeste hasn't been locked up. This is also where the proof of her being underage starts being relevant, hence why I brought it up first. See, if you aren't too familiar with VTubing, pretty much every VTuber does something in addition to just streaming themselves playing games. It might be cooking, chatting, react content, hand streams, ASMR, voice acting, video editing, or just innovating aspects of streaming. For me, it's making these scripted videos. I guess you could also say that I cover drama, although I don't do that as much as someone like, say, False ISD or Lara does. One pretty common category of content that VTubers make in addition to streaming themselves gaming is not safe for work content. Now, that last one is relevant to this video because Celeste was a lewd VTuber, and you might be wondering why that's notable. Well, consider the date she was actually born on, which, if you need a refresher, is July 5th, 2004. And then consider this tweet from her, as well as the day it was made. I'll give you a few seconds so you can realize what that means. If you haven't already done the math in your head, Celeste would have been 16 when she started doing lewd tubing. So that means anyone who purchased nudes from her during the 2 years where she was underage was purchasing CSAM. Even if she was telling the truth about her age and she was actually 20, not 19 when she made that post, she's still admitting to having made not safe for work content as a minor. So yeah, regardless of what her actual age is, Celeste is guilty of distributing CSAM. And she also posted thirst photos in her Discord server. I don't need to prove that anyone downloaded it. The fact that she made them available somewhere where people could download them qualifies this as distribution. Well, I could not find anything to suggest that she had posted nudes in her Discord. Considering that she had posted thirst photos while she was still underage in there, I don't think it's a stretch to imagine she posted nudes in there. And here's some people who I'll get to in a second, clearly thirsting over her. I also know that there were people who she sent nudes of herself to, meaning that they unknowingly accepted CSAM. However, when they found out, they were horrified by this. I know this because I spoke with them, and because they do genuinely regret being involved with Celeste, and also they have assured me that they would not have accepted it if they knew. I am not naming them because I don't want them to go through backlash because of something that was not their fault. This is also why Celeste got kicked out of a VTuber group she was a part of, Emerald Quadrant. I know this because I spoke to a member of the group, Hailstone. At first, Hailstone stood by Celeste, as Celeste was adamant about the allegations being false. However, after one of Celeste's victims came into contact with Hailstone's co-founder, of Emerald Quadrant, and they had a 3-hour Discord VC, Hailstone changed their mind and expelled Celeste from the group. For the record, I don't blame Hailstone for standing by Celeste at first, since it's natural to not want to assume the worst about your friends. But it's not just Celeste's Discord that Celeste posted while she was underage. There's at least one instance of her posting nudes on Twitter. Specifically, she posted a photo of her bare butt on her After Dark Celly account. Now, for obvious reasons, I can't show you the original photo that Celeste posted, since aside from the fact that I'd get into trouble with both the law and YouTube, I don't have the photo, and I'm going to guess that there's no loophole I could use. What I can show you is a video containing comments that replied to the photo, which you'll see right now. Yeah, as you can see, most of these only really make sense if she posted something explicit, and given that none of them are commenting on how good the art is, it can't be a piece of lewd art. Her birthday was about 2 weeks away, so you can't even claim that she meant to post a legal photo of herself and posted a photo where she was a minor by accident. But that's not all. She also got not safe for work art of herself done with adults. Now, I will fully admit I don't know the legality of this one, since Celeste's VTuber persona and model weren't based on how she looks IRL. But as you can see from looking at the date, she was still a minor in the eyes of the law at the time this art was posted. If I was one of the other people in those images, I would request the original artist take them down because of how uncomfortable I felt. But as you can tell by how much is left of the video, we're not done yet. What could be worse than distributing CSAM, you might ask? Celeste is a pedophile. And we get to the most serious thing here. Now, I know some of you might be scratching your head that I'm including this one since I established that Celeste was 16. Well, here's the thing. According to the document, Celeste was very open about how she's hypersexual and extremely flirtatious. And as you can tell by the title of this segment, she didn't care about how old you were. As long as you were someone she could be sexual with, she'd go out of your way to do so. Multiple adults and minors who were in her Discord mentioned how horny she was. Hell, there have been cases where she knew minors were in VC, yet didn't care and was extremely sexual. One example that stands out is this conversation, which features a user named Someone, who I would like to point out was 14 when this happened, yet we have Celeste being extremely sexual. Another example that I can't go into too much detail about here involves someone by the name of Layla, also known as Sunwitch. The main reason I can't go into too much detail here is because I'm gonna make a video going over what Sunwitch did in the future. But I'll give you a TLDR of Sunwitch's involvement with Celeste. Namely, Celeste made a post calling out Sunwitch with Layla's account tag in it. However, the thing is, she did this while Layla, that's Sunwitch's real name, was a minor and did so on her Not Safe for Work account. An account which, I might remind you, posted CSAM, thus putting Layla at risk from pedophiles. Now, I cannot say I feel bad for Sunwitch, considering what Sunwitch did. If you know what Sunwitch did, you'll understand why I'm saying that. But still, this is, at best, extremely irresponsible and reckless on Celeste's part, and I'd rather not think about what it says about her at worst. And Celeste's horniness was so overwhelming that even if you were related to her, that wouldn't save you. Because her actual sister, who was a minor when this was all going down, was in the server, and Celeste didn't do anything about people being sexual in the Discord. I also have to call out one of Celeste's friends, someone by the name of Lyra. See, Lyra was also underage like Celeste, and she actually knew Celeste IRL. I spoke with Lyra, and she claimed that she wasn't that involved, and that she only posted a few messages. However, as you can see from the screenshots provided by the document, there's a very different story from what she claims. Hey Lyra, by your logic, Celeste posted just a few CSAM photos. That doesn't make it okay. In the best case scenario, Lyra is guilty of negligence. She knew what was going on, but didn't do anything about it. In the absolute worst case scenario, she was a willing collaborator with Celeste. Celeste would later claim that she removed all minors in her Discord, but she actually kept one, and actually made said minor a mod. But she wasn't just grooming people in her Discord. Remember how I mentioned that Thunder Raven was horny on main in Celeste's replies, despite her claiming to be a minor? Well, I think that Celeste and Raven are made for each other, because Celeste is guilty of doing the exact same thing with someone else. Yeah, considering all that I've shown, I'm gonna say that Celeste's false allegations against Riedel, much like Thunder Raven's, were basically her way to deflect from what she had actually done. And considering I found evidence that there's a third set of false allegations made against Riedel that I'll get to in a future video, as well as the stuff that Riedel put in that document debunking some other allegations, I'm going to say that all the stuff that Riedel has been accused of should be disregarded for the immediate future, pending further review. Now, before I end the video, I realized that there's actually quite a bit that I haven't covered from the doc, so I'm just gonna play a few videos the doc present, as well as show some photos without commentary. And because, quite frankly, the evidence speaks for itself. I do not have anything else to say, so let's end this right now, shall we? you're out there and you somehow see this, I have just one thing to say to you. Never return to the VTuber sphere again except to apologize, confess to what you have done, and let others take the blame for, and then leave permanently. Turn yourself in and receive judgment from the law, because you have caused nothing but pain and misery for everyone who you've wronged. There is a circle in hell that is reserved exclusively for you, and quite frankly, I hope you burn in there until the end of time. To Chris the Narc, I sure hope that whatever views or super chats you got from covering Celeste's false allegations, directly or indirectly, were worth it, because you helped someone who did absolutely abhorrent stuff ruin someone else's life.
To Angry Slug, all I have to say is go fuck yourself.
And as for Ollie Rain, Cloy, Devin, Akuma Miko, and the other members of Hellcast who knew what Celeste was up to, but either chose to ignore it or outright helped her cover it up, all I have to say is repent. Anyways, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for watching. I'm Andreas Rebel, and I'll see you on my next assignment. Later.